The Hero 10 and the Action 2 are the flagship devices for GoPro and DJI, and they both have overheating problems. Lucky for you, I found a solution. Here's my GoPro, and it's been continuously recording for more than 5 hours at 4K 60 with stabilization at maximum. And by the end of this video, I will tell you exactly how you can stop your action camera from overheating. What up, nerds? I'm Jay Sharif, and as you know, I love action cameras. A few months ago, I reviewed the GoPro Hero 10 and the DJI Action 2. They both perform well when it comes to video, audio, and stabilization, but they also have a reputation for overheating and turning themselves off. That's totally unacceptable for a flagship device. 6 months later, and I think I've found a solution to the overheating problem. Firstly, both cameras have had multiple firmware updates, and I'm on the latest version for both. Secondly, lots of companies have started making accessories for these devices, and one particular advert caught my eye on Amazon. A camera cage for the DJI Action 2 by SmallRig. The description says it uses graphene to transfer heat away from the camera, which lets you record for 40% longer before the camera overheats. Now, if you were paying attention in school, then you know that graphene is another name for carbon. The lead in your pencil is made of graphene, and I was a bit skeptical that this camera cage was capable of doing what it promised, but at the same time, I'm aware that metal is an excellent conductor of heat. So, in theory, a metal camera cage could actually help remove heat from your camera. So I ordered the SmallRig camera case for my DJI Action 2 and a Ulanzi metal camera cage for my GoPro 10. And it's worth knowing that lots of companies produce camera cages and camera cases, but all the cheap ones will be made of plastic. If you've got to get a genuine metal cage for your GoPro or your DJI, then you will have to pay more for the privilege. Anyway, once they arrived, I started putting them to the test, and the results really surprised me. But before we get to that, here's a quick summary of the testing conditions. I always seem to get questions if I don't include this, so let's get this out of the way. I tested both cameras in 4K 30 and in 4K 60, and I wanted to simulate day-to-day usage. So, firstly, I put them both into the lowest stabilization mode. Here are the results. Red is without a camera cage, and the blue bars represent recording with a camera cage. As you can see, in every scenario, the camera cage gives you a longer record time. What's even more interesting is that when using a camera cage, the GoPro kept going until the battery ran out. It never overheated. Also worth noting, in 4K 30 mode, the DJI also kept going until the battery was exhausted. So, this was done using the lowest possible stabilization settings. Not off, but still at the lowest possible stabilization. For the GoPro, that's standard stabilization, and for the DJI, we were using the new steady stabilization mode. Next, I tested both cameras with stabilization set as high as possible, because that's supposed to use much more processing power and should heat them up much quicker. Once again, using the metal camera cage always delivered a better result. Even with maximum stabilization, at 4K 30 your camera should not overheat. At 4K 60 though, overheating is inevitable. However, the metal camera cage significantly delays overheating. So, let's summarize what the data is telling us. If you have the DJI Action 2 and want to film in 4K 30, then having a camera cage doesn't make much difference, because the camera doesn't really overheat in 4K 30. However, in 4K 60 mode, a metal camera cage will make a huge difference. In my testing, the metal cage gave me an extra 85% or more of record time before the camera overheated. If you have the GoPro 10, then you definitely need to buy a camera cage. In almost every scenario, the metal cage removed heat from the camera so well that the GoPro 10 kept going until the battery ran out. This Ulanzi G95 camera cage will cost you at least $40, but it's a must-have accessory for anyone who has a Hero 10. One final observation that's very clear from the data: Purely in terms of battery performance, if you want to film long clips in 4K 60, then you're better off with the GoPro 10. If you want to film long clips in 4K 30, then you're better off with the DJI Action 2. Now, if you don't want to buy a camera cage, there is one other option to consider. I'd heard a rumour that if you use an external power bank, your camera won't overheat as quickly. Well, as it happens, I bought this monopod power bank from Ulanzi very recently. This is the BG3 model with a 10,000 milliamp hours capacity, and I can confirm that plugging this into your camera does extend the record time on your GoPro. It still overheats, but at a much slower rate. However, for extended recordings in 4K 60, you are still better off with the camera cage. So, what happens if you use a power bank monopod in addition to the camera cage? Well, this happens. If you pair your camera with a metal cage and a power bank, then your GoPro will never overheat. It will keep going until your memory card is completely full, or until your power bank is depleted. As you can see here, my GoPro was still going after 5 hours and 25 minutes of continuous video recording at 4K 60 with stabilization set to maximum. My camera did get quite hot, but it kept going because it did not overheat. So, from now on, I'm going to use both a power bank and a camera cage whenever I'm vlogging with my GoPro 10, because that's the only way to stop this action camera from overheating. Sadly, this trick does not work on the DJI Action 2, and that's because it's a modular camera. With the GoPro, the power bank powers the camera itself, but with the DJI, the power bank is sending power to the battery in the second module, which is then sending power to the battery in the camera unit, which is a convoluted way of doing it. But anyway, as a result, the camera will still overheat in 4K 60. So, to sum up, if you have a DJI Action 2 and want to avoid overheating, then use a metal camera cage, as it will last a lot longer. If you want to stop your GoPro from overheating, then use a metal camera cage and an external power bank, and your camera should never overheat. Alternatively, just film in 4K 30 and your camera will keep going for a lot longer. There are links in the description as usual. That's all for today. I'll be back with another video very soon. Later, nerds.